Japan, due to consecutive defeats on the main battlefield, resorted to desperate measures. The infamous Unit 731, in a bid to turn the tide of war, conducted horrifying experiments by injecting living subjects with a biochemical agent, envisioning the use of biological weapons. They captured numerous prisoners of war from various parts of the world for these experiments. 2 missiles descended upon Hiroshima, leading Japan to announce unconditional surrender. Consequently, Unit 731's experiments came to an end. 70 years later, on a small island in Southeast Asia, there was a legend. It is said that there was a senior Japanese officer known as the Malayan Tiger who plundered gold and silver treasures in Southeast Asia. After Japan's defeat and surrender, he didn't have time to move the treasure but hid it somewhere. In the years that followed, countless explorers came to the islands around Southeast Asia, all eager to find this. One day, a man stumbled upon something while relieving himself. Drawing on years of treasure hunting experience, he sensed that something valuable was nearby. Soon enough, he discovered a concealed cave. As he examined the surroundings with a lighter in hand, the ground beneath his feet suddenly gave way. Days later, a wealthy heir named Warren heard of this discovery and hired an armed team to search for the treasure on the island. They quickly found an iron gate, a remnant from the Dutch colonial era.
You're an asshole.
The Japanese, after occupying the island, had transformed the location into a military fortress. Just as they were about to enter the mine, a group of local island natives suddenly attacked them. The natives' firepower was so intense that the mercenaries had to take Warren and hide inside the mine. However, the natives had no intention of letting them escape. They threw a grenade into the mine, injuring one of the mercenaries and causing a collapse at the entrance. Trapped inside, they had no choice but to venture deeper into the cave to find an alternative exit. They walked through a dark, damp tunnel where the silence was so deafening that they could only hear their breathing. Before long, they reached a wooden bridge. As they cautiously crossed, a bizarre music echoed around them. Could there still be inhabitants in this long-abandoned mine? Fortunately, their robust mental composure prevented them from being frightened, and they pressed forward. After passing through another tunnel, they arrived at a small warehouse filled with various bottles and containers. The man was so nervous that he was frightened by a gas mask and pulled the trigger on it. They then entered a separate chamber where historian Reed discovered numerous photographs documenting the inhumane experiments conducted by the Japanese military on live subjects. Afterwards, they arranged for the injured team member to rest. No one noticed a mysterious figure appearing behind them. Papa, who was on guard, seemed to sense something unusual, abruptly turning to look, but the shadow had already disappeared. Former Special Forces soldier Stanley detected anomalies in the surroundings. This place was neither a standard military fortress nor a bank vault. Ignoring Warren's objections, Reed disclosed the truth. They were in the heart of Unit 731's experimental center, dedicated to researching biochemical weapons. As a historian, Reed came here to learn about it. In an effort to leave, the team decided to split into 2 groups. Papa, along with Warren and Suling, would scout ahead, while Stanley and Ree stayed behind to tend to the injured Ario. But not long after they separated, the injured Ario sensed something under the bed. Ario suddenly noticed something peculiar beneath the sandy soil at his feet. Just as confusion spread across his face, ghostly hands abruptly reached out, seizing Ario's legs. Stanley and the others rushed over to investigate. They saw a monster flashing in front of their eyes.
What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?
In order to save their teammates, they had to jump into the hole to find out what was going on. The narrow, Dimly lit tunnels occasionally echoed with the monstrous roars. When they found Ario, it was too late. He had already succumbed. As Stanley turned around, a figure appeared and swiftly knocked them unconscious. On the other side, Joko, who had become separated from the group in the underground passage, arrived at another cavern. This place was eerie, scattered with human bones. Suddenly, a figure darted behind Joko. He swiftly turned, firing a shot that brought the creature down. Upon seeing the creature's face, Joko turned pale. The monster wore a mask, resembling both human and inhuman features. Before Joko could exhale in relief, another creature from behind covered his eyes. He struggled and managed to throw the creature to the ground. Despite defeating the creature in a series of blows, Joko's eyes were injured during the struggle. In the blurred vision, he noticed more creatures closing in on him. Joko raised his pistol, unleashing a barrage of gunfire until the bullets ran out. With no ammunition left, and surrounded by creatures, Joko could only despairingly give up the fight. Meanwhile, Ree and Stanley, who had been knocked unconscious, regained consciousness. In front of them stood a Japanese soldier wearing a gas mask, armed and speaking in Japanese, demanding their surrender. Seizing the opportunity, Stanley lunged at him, delivering 2 punches to his forehead. Stanley then removes the Japanese soldier's mask, and underneath it is a wrinkled old face. From the Japanese soldier's account, they learned that the creatures attacking them had become monstrous due to injections of a biochemical agent. He, on the other hand, had received a minimal dose and had lost track of how long he had been living in this mine. It wasn't until Ree showed the Japanese soldier a video of Japan's surrender that he realized the war had ended long ago. On the other side, those seeking an escape were also under attack. Warren was unfortunate to be injured by a creature, but his teammates intervened in time to save him. Afterwards, they came to another lab where the experiments were injected. The bodies of these subjects, despite 70 years having passed, showed no signs of decay. Warren also found a biochemical agent on the table. He thinks it's valuable and decides to sneak it out. Papa and Captain Tino, exploring further, came across a sealed door. Upon opening it, they were confronted with a scene that left them dumbfounded. This was a group of creatures wearing samurai armor, now rendered invincible due to the injection of the biochemical agent. Their intrusion had awakened these bio-enhanced Japanese warriors. As the Japanese samurai closed in, Captain Tino, in sheer panic, fired his gun, but the bullets had no effect on the invulnerable warriors. A swift strike from a Japanese samurai injured Captain Tino. In order to save Captain Tino, Papa was stabbed several times by the samurai and died on the spot. Witnessing this dire situation, they hastily escaped into the underground tunnels, where they encountered Joko, who had succumbed to the mutated creatures in an earlier attack. Thinking they were safe in the tunnels, they were ambushed by mutated creatures. They resisted desperately, managing to successfully navigate through the tunnel and emerge on the other side of the surface. Captain Tino and Stanley reunited with Warren's group, and as they discussed their escape plan, Warren's injuries worsened. Suling didn't want his boyfriend to die, so he injected a biochemical agent into Warren's body when they weren't looking. Although this method can save Warren's life, Warren will become an irrational monster just like those Japanese samurai. At that moment, the samurai came out of the ground. They panicked and fled outside. The Japanese soldier who knew about Japan's surrender tried to hold off the samurai, sacrificing himself to buy time for the others. The samurai slashed the soldier to death and then cut open the mask of one of the monsters and ordered it to look for the intruders. It didn't take long for the monster to find them, and a fight ensued, but Suling left his companions behind and escaped with Warren out of fear of death. As a result, they didn't get far before the biochemical agent in Warren's body started to take effect and turned him into an unconscious monster. After that, Warren directly knocked Suling to death on the wall. The remaining group continued to evade pursuit from both the samurai and the mutated creatures. In a room, they discovered a sewage outlet. In order to buy time for his companions to escape, Captain Tino chose to stay behind to break the back, and finally fell under the samurai's long sword. Ree and Stanley, traveling through the sewer, reached the riverbank, thinking they were finally safe. However, the bio-enhanced samurai caught up.